At the very end of my career, I decided that I wanted to do something practical at the very end. And taking up work, which I had been doing as a PhD student, i.e. thinking about cities, their cycling, and design. And the key realization came when I noted, way too late, that e-bikes are as fast in urban areas as cars. If you have a city, you're lucky if the average speed of your car is more than 15, 16 kilometers. Lucky. An e-bike can always make that, and actually can beat that. So the question becomes, why on earth are we still emphasizing the car so much? The cars are big, wasteful, and killing machines. We don't really want to have them in the urban area. So the idea came up to think about a substantial redesign, and I will talk about why and how that might look like today. Obviously, a project of this type is not done by one group or one chair at all. It involves 6 other colleagues from within the Department of Civil and Environmental and Geomatics Engineering, and I have to acknowledge that. And the department always reminds me that they gave us some money, so we have to credit them as well. So they bulk paid us a bit as well. Anyway, now, what is the challenge? We know that the 1.5 degree target has been breached. It's no way back. So we are on our way to perdition. Just, I guess you have seen this image or similar images all over the press. Where do we go now? Are we just happily walking down towards 3 degrees and just live with the consequences? Or what can we do? And it's against that background that we, the colleagues and myself, thought, let's at least offer a vision of what we could do. Because engineers and planners like to work incrementally, and getting nowhere fast. And if you look at the big visions on the planning side and transport side of the last century, they were humongous. There were the motorway systems, which worldwide built these high-capacity roads. These were the post-war reconstruction of Europe and the rest of the world and building large-scale multi-story housing, and we did that. So it's not as if we couldn't effect a major change if we wanted to. So anyway, this is the background which you have to keep in mind. We are on the way to climate disaster. So what is the dilemma? Why aren't we doing anything about it? I'm just talking about transport now. I'll leave the other bottlenecks to the experts. On the transport side, the key issue is that we do know, empirically that has been shown again and again, that increasing accessibility improves the productivity of our societies, makes us richer, and I would argue increases the social capital of the societies. Now, accessibility understood here as the potential to reach other people and other opportunities. Anything you do to improve the transport system helps to increase accessibility. You can't avoid it. Now, when you do that, what is the downside? Why is it a dilemma? The dilemma arises because if we make things cheaper and nicer, people consume more of it. Transport is a normal good. The cheaper you make it, people consume more of it. And that means that they consume it in various ways. The first way is they buy cars. And as cars effectively have become dirt cheap in comparison to what they were, let's say, 50 years or 100 years ago, they are kind of the first thing people getting richer buy. And those who are already rich buy bigger ones and silly big ones like the SUVs of today. So that's one thing. The next thing is they consume more of it. so they travel more. And as long as we are fueling the cars with carbohydrates, it is a straight recipe to increase CO2 emissions. And yes, electric vehicles will make that better, but not perfect. The next thing which happens is because we can't build capacity as quickly as we increase our demand, it increases congestion. And again, you can't avoid it. Now, in addition, and this is obviously more recent, if you make life easier for travel, people will start living from home and working from home, and that gets them out of the habit of using public transport. Because whatever we believe how great our public transport system is, for most people, it's something they have to do because there's no parking provided at their workspace. And finally, obviously, it invites sprawl. And I guess all of you have seen news items, which talk about working from home people living even further out. And all of these things, socially, we don't want. And so once in a while, socially, we say we don't want them and even pass laws, but then it becomes very hard to actually do anything when it becomes detailed. And I think in Switzerland, it's most obvious because anything we do to, for example, reduce sprawl, then gets defeated at the vote, at a referendum. Okay. Now, it's not that the transport planners and traffic engineers don't think about what they can do. And so what are we thinking about at the moment? What are the visions we are discussing? Because I do believe to socially advance, society needs to have a common image of where it wants to go. Remember these tempting images of empty, sunlit motorways. They're still at the back of the mind of everybody here in the room and everybody in the room who charges and wants more motorways. It's always going to be sunlit and empty. Now, we all know that's never going to be the place, but this is the vision. And we need a comparable vision to guide us on the way forward. So what is currently being discussed? On the engineering, planning, economic side, the solution is we manage demand. So if we don't have the capacity, reduce the demand so it fits the capacity. And that's why I did ask in the morning how much more capacity these wonderful technologies would bring, because they would be filled up in no time. Now, what is the preferred road of managing demand? It's pricing. And if you asked an economist or planner what his wet dream would be about pricing, he would come up with a list like that. So he would say, we need a two-part tariff for just owning and operating a car. So one part so that we provide it, and a second part for every kilometer you drive. We then would like congestion pricing to make you go away where too many other people are. Then parking pricing, the same thing. No flat tariffs. We obviously would charge CO2. And finally, we'd price everything else, which is a nuisance about car driving. And when you look at the list, you know this is a political non-starter. It just won't happen. Even in Singapore, which is very far, they never, ever tried pay-as-you-go charging. So, and that's the most optimistic and best position for such a system to come to fruition. And Singapore as well is very bad on parking pricing, and so it's not really doing this. So this is one vision. But as I said, a political non-starter. Then on the public transport side, they are dreaming of mobility as a service, i.e., offering something which supposedly is as good as having a car by coordinating everything which transports more than 2 people at a time, from pool taxis all the way to metros carrying 1,500. The problem with this is that public transport has a couple of design problems. What did we do here? We collected lots of data in a study called Mobility in Switzerland, and then we calculated the experienced experienced cost by the users, the generalized cost. And then we calculated the generalized cost for the mode used and the mode not in used. So we have both an estimate for car driving as well as for public transport. And the key message here is, if you look at the blue, the thick lines, this is the ratio between the generalized cost of a car versus the cost of public transport. So it's a factor nearly 3. And if you look at, if we were to give everybody with their Christmas card a season ticket for public transport, which is available here in Switzerland, the General Abonnement, that's the dotted line. Even if you give everybody the free season ticket, the perceived cost would still be just equal between car and non-car. So that means in that situation, you would still have a market share of 50% for car drivers, and at the realistic share, about 1/3 share of driving. So you just can't beat it. So what else? Now, the other thing is obviously automation. Now, the big hype for automation is gone, but we have made big advances. If you look at China, if you look at San Francisco in the US, you can already drive automated taxis. So they're gonna come soon. Probably Serge knows more about this, how long it's gonna be taking, but I guess in 10 years' time, they will be everywhere. Now, the problem with that is that in the first hype, these cars were announced to be cheap. Essentially, you got the impression they would be free. So we did a study, or PhD students of mine did a study where we looked at the expected costs. And obviously, it's lots of assumptions, and I'm happy for somebody to redo the analysis. With today's numbers, this is about 2015, 2016. The key outcome of this is the comparison between private automated vehicle versus an automated taxi. The automated taxi, I assume, had to cover its full cost. So they wouldn't be subsidized by somebody else. So you would have to pay the economic cost of doing that. This is 0.43 francs per person kilometer. A private automatic car, on average, would be a bit more expensive. But unfortunately, we do know that car drivers only look at the variable costs. Car drivers forget that they paid a lot of money to have it. And if you compare the variable cost against the variable cost of driving a taxi, the ratio is 1:3. So the share of the chance of automated taxis taking over the world is 0. They will have a big, substantial market share, but they will not replace automated private vehicles, short of us forbidding these things. So, no hope. And then if we take all of this together, we come to this. This is a back of the envelope calculation, and it's probably wrong, but the trend is right. If you look at the CO2 emissions of today's carbon cars, it's the black line, and the red one is the target we should meet by 2050. And most countries have signed up to it. Obviously, some countries believe that they can get out of it again. We'll see where they pay the cost for that. Anyway, so you take today's cars, you take today's electric cars, and you take better cars because the electric motors and the batteries will get better. Miraculously, you are below the target. But that's assuming that the demand doesn't change. And the demand will change. There will be population growth, and therefore vehicle fleet growth. There will be induced demand, i.e. people traveling more because everything has become cheaper, and electric vehicles are cheaper to run. And then there's obviously the induced demand towards autonomous driving, because autonomous driving is both cheap as well as potentially much, much more comfortable. And there will be a big gap. And we have to, we don't have to do anything, but people who think about it think we should get rid of that gap. Okay, so what's happening? Some people got the same message and are proposing other solutions, at least for the urban areas. Suburbia, we might be able to do something. What is left of the rural, it's probably a lost cause, but we'll find out about that. So what are the solutions which are coming up? And there are all of these buzzwords, 15-minute city, net zero city, essentially concepts which say that we can make the city life in a way that people don't use their cars anymore. And in this context, you have to understand the idea of the e-bike city, because the 15-minute cities, they really benefit from the aura of Paris. Paris, the mayor, and her local academic support always in a way talk about Paris. Now, Paris is a beautiful city, but it's an exception. It is as dense, it's highly developed on the public transport side, and you can't take Cologne and make it into Paris, or not anytime soon. So what else could you do? An e-bike city maybe is a solution. And let me tell you what we have as an idea. As I said earlier, e-bikes are as fast or faster than cars on average in the urban environment. They are enabling people of all ages, all fitness levels, to use the cycle. And after they have gotten used to it, it's probably not killing them anymore as it currently does, because, and particularly the elderly, are surprised by just how powerful e-bikes are. And there's lots of accidents due to that. And hopefully that will go away. So what do we do? The e-bike essentially is part of the system. So it's e-bikes in transit, buses and trains. 50% of the road space is handed over to the bicycles to provide an environment which is not only safe, but is perceived to be safe. You integrate the shared services so that they can travel longer distances. And I think that's the academic challenge. You would like to find out if this system, this world, could be as accessible as it is today. Because it's pretty clear, to me at least, that a proposal which suggests to the voters you're going to lose is not a winning proposition. So how would it look like? So we took Zurich as an example. We did design exercises. And here is, for example, one reconstruction of an urban scene in Zurich. So the tram is where it always be. On the right side, you have the bidirectional cycling facility, and you have one lane which is left over for the cars, because we still need police vehicles, we need health services and everybody else who needs to get to addresses. We are not getting rid of the cars, we are just reducing their use. So that's one view, that's another one. It's nice, but not spectacular. We are not selling architectural visions where the sun always shines and happy people are drinking coffee. It's realism here. Now, let me show you this little video. Here it is. Yes. If you make it as loud as you can.
Climate change may be the greatest challenge of the 21st century. In Switzerland, transportation produces 41% of CO2 emissions from energy combustion, which is more than in the USA and across the European Union. Traffic jams are commonplace, and by 2050, populations in Swiss cities should grow by another 30%. Traffic simulations by researchers at ETH Zurich show that there is a solution to increase the capacity of streets and reduce emissions. Reallocating more street space for sustainable modes can improve safety, efficiency, access, and sustainability in a way that everyone's mobility needs are met. Decarbonizing transportation while improving the freedom of travel requires integration of micromobility and public transportation. By transforming streets, we can strengthen public transportation and micromobility and provide safer and more attractive spaces for pedestrians. Emergency and delivery vehicles, as well as mobility vans and tradespeople, will have access to all buildings through a parking reservation system. Better access to wider, separated bike lanes will increase safety and convenience for all ages and abilities. Children could enjoy cycling to school safely. Increased bike parking and more publicly shared micromobility would provide last-mile connections for commuters and visitors. More space designated for micromobility means people would benefit from less crashes, reduced stress, and improved health and well-being. Based on research, redesigning streets is a quick and cost-effective solution that would work if implemented. People can regain autonomy and enjoy the freedom of movement without owning a car. By combining public transport and micromobility, we occupy less street space and make the city more livable for everyone while achieving emissions goals for transportation.
Obviously, we have to look at now, having got this idea, we have to now show, does it really work? Does it deliver the promise of not reducing accessibility? And as I'm not allowed to speak longer, I'll just say this is a very challenging issue because if you take today's behavior, the results aren't quite clear. If you use the results from stated preference studies, you get the result which you wanted. But this obviously immediately raises the question of the critic say, oh, this is all nonsense, that you made up the results to fit your results. But the result is, yes, for Zurich, we would obviously reduce the accessibilities for car drivers, but we would increase the accessibilities for everybody else. And it would be a net gain for Zurich, and I guess for most other cities as well.